Hi, welcome to the Planned Giving webinar. My name's Beth Wolfer. I'm a Planned Giving Officer at Best Friends Animal Society in Utah. So what we're going to go over today is unleashing the power of planned giving. We're going to talk about a definition. What is it? Why should we care? What are some myths around it? And how do we get started? So first, a definition. What is planned giving? It also can be called legacy planning, gift planning. There are a few different names for it, but typically it's gifts in a will, trust, or your organization is a beneficiary of a financial account. There can be gifts of assets. Sometimes that's real estate, collections, stocks, property. Depends on what your gift acceptance policy is going to look like, what you would like to accept. And often they occur at someone's death, but they are planned because it takes some forethought, some thinking, and some planning, and usually the help of others like an attorney, a CPA, or a financial advisor. Why should I care? Well, a lot of people care where their hard-earned money and assets go. Often they're either philanthropic or just plain don't want their government to get their money. So we've got a couple of stats here. Between 2007 and the year 2061, bequests to charities will total an estimated $6.3 trillion. That is a lot of money. In 2017, which is the most recent stat, Americans gave almost $40 billion to charity through bequest gifts. And the average bequest amount is most frequently between $25,000 and $100,000. At Best Friends, we've been building our program for about 20 years, and I'll just tell you that our average gift is $110,000, and planned giving or planned gifts make up almost a third of our budget to help the animals, so it's a substantial amount. So who are these people, these generous people who make these plans? They're not the usual suspects that you would think of as major donors or even the wealthiest donors. They're very loyal. They like us more than any other charity usually. We call them loyal donors. These are people who give small amounts over a long time, maybe not every single year, but usually more often than not. If we are doing a query, we are not seeing how much a person has given. We're measuring how often a person has given. They're consistent givers of any amount. Those are bona fide prospects. And just because they stop giving for a few years doesn't mean that they don't love your organization. Maybe they've had a change in circumstances temporarily, or downsized, or were helping a child or a grandchild. They may resume their giving, and you also may have been in their will all along. So part of the goal is to find out if they've already left you. So yeah, consistent, loyal donors are the best planned giving prospects. So types of gift. Specific gifts are things like, I bequeath a sum of $100,000 to the XYZ rescue group. A percentage is fairly self-explanatory. I'm leaving 50% of my estate to the Humane Society of Boise and 50% of my estate to my granddaughter. Residual gift would be something like, after my bills are paid and my debts are settled, the Vancouver Cat Rescue gets what is left of my assets. And a contingent gift just means that there's a condition in place. If my husband and I die at the same time, all of our assets go to Arnold's Shelter of the Pines. Excuse me. So usually there's some sort of condition there. We try to make it as easy as possible for people to include Best Friends in their plans. So we provide a simple sentence, kind of a fill in the blank with either an amount or a percentage blank. So they can just fill this out, and we are pretty diligent about including our tax identification number everywhere we can. You don't want to make them rifle through a pile of papers or brochures or a giant email inbox just to find your information. If they have to do that, there's a chance that they may just pick a different organization because it does provide easy access to information. So what triggers planning? What makes people start thinking about the end of their life or their legacy? Usually it's a life event, often a marriage or divorce. They may have gotten a diagnosis, so health issues. Someone close to them has died. Maybe they've got a new job and they're filling out paperwork. Retirement is a very obvious one, or they've had a windfall of some sort, like an inheritance. They might move to another state where the laws are different and they have to redo their paperwork. And as an aside, we recommend that people update their plans every 5 to 10 years. They may have a change of guardian, executor, or trustee. For instance, maybe they've changed their mind on who they want to have handle. Maybe they're not in touch with that person as much anymore, so they need to redo their plans when they change executors or trustees. Maybe there's been a birth in the family or an adoption of children or grandchildren, and they're starting to think about what they're going to leave to them. And often people will pull together their will or trust before a big trip in the off chance that something might happen to them. And what has happened within the last year or two, significant tax law changes since their last review. So planned gifts don't just happen. You have to put some effort into an intentional program that usually can go right along with what you are already doing in terms of annual giving. You have to invest in getting the word out that this is an option for your supporters, that you welcome it. Start including it in things you're already producing, like direct mail, annual appeals, or flyers or inserts. If you have the resources, create materials just about planned giving to your organization. Get your infrastructure in place so that your organization has gift acceptance policies. Are you going to accept real estate? What about timeshares? Bequest intention forms that are easy for supporters to fill out, non-binding, they can change their mind, but it gives you a paper record as well as an electronic one usually. And frequently asked questions are super helpful as well. You might want to hold educational programs like seminars where you bring in a CPA or a tax attorney or an estate attorney who just provide information on how to do this. And then they, of course, may want to give out business cards or brochures to have those people follow up with them. Plan giving advisory councils and committees. Sometimes those are subsets of your development committee of your board, if you have one, or just people who love you, who have your best interest at heart and probably won't charge you. If you're going to create a legacy society, like a giving group, put that into what you're already doing institutionally. So you may have a major giving pool of people, a middle donor, entry annual givers, things like that. So legacy societies are ways of making people feel special and part of the gang. They like to know that there are other people like them who are in this group. Leadership champions, so that would be someone who's already made a gift in their will or trust, who's willing to give a testimonial, usually in a newsletter or maybe a video online, and then in your advertising. So let's talk about some of the myths about planned giving. Number one, it's too complicated. People can perceive that planned giving is too technical, beyond their scope of knowledge. Really, at its most basic core, it just means planning what's going to happen with your money and your stuff when you're gone. Yes, we recommend getting professional advice when making your plans, but people do that with their taxes without blinking an eye, or their health. We aren't expected to have the level of knowledge that our tax preparer or doctor has, are we? Well, planned giving is no different. There are lots of professionals who can help, and colleagues. And there are some things people can do that don't require a professional. Think about when you've opened a new bank account or an insurance policy. Isn't there a place on the form to name your beneficiaries? It can be as simple as writing the organization's name, and maybe, for bonus points, you include an address or even a tax ID number. Myth number two, we don't know rich donors. Well, we consider that every donor has the potential to make a major gift when they no longer need their assets. And some, as I said before, some of the biggest gifts come from donors who give $25 consistently. It's likely that people who already support you have at least something that could be considered an asset: a home, some stocks, a retirement account. Beware of prejudging and writing off having a conversation with someone who just doesn't look the part of a rich person. Some of the most humble plan giving donors I've met live very modestly, the quintessential millionaire next door. And if they don't have children, what's going to become of their home, their boat, their stamp collection, and things like that? Myth number 3, I don't want to talk about death. Well, that seems like human nature. But start with the idea that every person would like to leave a positive legacy or make a difference consistent with their outlook on life. People want their lives to matter, to mean something. Most people care about how they're going to be remembered. You don't have to talk about death so much as find out what difference they want to make in the world. Talk about the support of their favorite causes and what they'd like to see accomplished. As you're building the relationship with them, find out what's important with them. What are their values? What would their dream be for the animals in our case? Sometimes talking about whether they've made a plan for their pets is a way in. For me, many early conversations with supporters are about their own animals. You might say something like, we like to check in with people to make sure they have a plan for their pets if something should happen to them. Do you know who would take care of Fluffy if something were to happen to you suddenly? Does that person know? Do you have that written down somewhere, like in your will or with your important papers? And this often leads to people self-identifying as plan giving donors already. Myth number 4, I'm not an expert. You really don't have to be. I am relatively new to this field, about 2 years, on top of a 20-year fundraising career. I was a little intimidated at first, sure, but I quickly learned that it was important to know where to find the answers and that I didn't necessarily have to have all the answers. You might have an attorney on your board or a subgroup of your board's development committee that can help. Many cities have a community foundation, and there's very likely someone on this call or in your peer group of colleagues who knows a lot. There's no reason to believe you have to reinvent the wheel on this. Myth number 5, it will take too long to see the return, and we need the support today. Well, if you don't start now, it's going to take even longer. That's just basic math. As I said, Best Friends has been doing plan giving for about 20 years, and that's how it's grown to be the size it is now. But you have to communicate realistic expectations to your executive director, board, and other stakeholders. Don't promise to measure results according to weeks or months. It does sometimes take years to get a plan giving program up and running. Current donors who make a gift in their will are even more invested in your success, so they tend to increase their engagement with you. Maybe they'll volunteer more often or ask what else they can do to help. And just a tidbit of information, donors tend to live an average of 8 years after they've made a plan. Conversation starters. I'm sorry for all the words on this slide. But there are a lot of ways that you can bring this up. Most directly, have you considered or would you consider a gift to us in your will or trust? I attended a webinar recently by a man named Russell James. He is a Texas University research and professor who's really a guru in the plan giving field. One of the things he touched on was the importance of language. The word legacy, for example. It may make sense in your organization and with your pool of supporters, but he's found that more often than not, the word legacy creates a disconnect. The average Joe or Jill of modest means may think that legacy giving or a legacy planning doesn't apply to him or her because they don't have huge piles of money sitting around. Russell ranked plan giving approaches from the worst to the best. He said, would you like to leave a legacy to my organization? Is the worst. Better, would you like to make a gift to our organization in your will or trust? And best of all is, would you like to make a lasting impact for the animals through a gift in your will? So it's all about the impact, their dreams, their values, and then also they like to be part of a group. So many people like you leave a gift in their will. Would you consider it? What causes have been important to you in your life that you would want to be part of your legacy or how you're remembered? Russell James would recommend. Have you made charitable gifts through your estate or financial plans, to other people, to other organizations? Are there provisions we should know about in advance to fulfill your wishes? When you use many donors, you're using a theory called social norm theory. It says that people feel more comfortable doing something that their peers are doing. It also sort of takes the pressure off them directly, which can sometimes feel more comfortable to them and to you. And when you talk about what happens after a donor dies, there are various ways to talk about when your gift is realized, when your gift comes to fruition, once you've moved on. And one of our favorites in the animal world is when a donor crosses the rainbow bridge or earns her angel wings. So what to listen for? What are some clues? Well, just like any other kind of fundraising, you want to listen for clues. I don't have any living family. I don't have children or grandchildren. I love your organization more than anything in the world, and I wish I could do more. That's a biggie, because these are, remember, often people who give very little, but over a long period of time. And I hear that a lot. And also that goes right along with, I'm already doing as much as I can. So I want to talk a minute about stewardship or gratitude, especially when people make a gift in their will or trust. It's usually revocable. They can change their mind. And good stewardship is so crucial. You have to be super donor-centric so that they know they're important, they're valued, they're heard, and they're appreciated. Some require more care and feeding than others. Some want to be anonymous, and others want their name in as many places as you'll let them. But always be really good stewards of the knowledge that they've included you. A little bit more about stewardship. Depending on your budget and your bandwidth, this is a list of possible ways to enhance your stewardship efforts. If you do nothing else, once you learn your organization is in their will, thank them promptly. We do something called a welcome kit, which is a thank you letter, but also here are the benefits of joining, we call it our Forever Friends group. They get our magazine for life. They are invited to events. They get a newsletter a couple times a year. We also send out surveys to make sure that we are contacting them the way they want to be contacted and how often. And some say don't contact me, and we respect that too. We ask if they'd like a visit, because some of our officers are able to travel to different places to see people, to thank them in person or to answer questions or offer updates on our organization. Sometimes we have events, big group events or small house parties, and our planned giving folks are invited to those. We try to think of creative thank yous for someone who's done something extraordinary. So we have the benefit of having a sanctuary with lots of different kinds of animals. So they might get a nose print of a cat or some paw prints from another kind of animal, like a dog. Even our pigs do painting, and so we might make a greeting card or thank you card out of those. And then we also occasionally do anniversary calls when somebody has a succinct beginning when they let you know that you're in their plans. And so we call them up a year later and say, thank you so much for letting us know. What questions can we answer? And you need to know how grateful we are for your support. So I wanted to give you some examples of things that Best Friends have done. So I mentioned the newsletter, which is on the left, also a very busy slide, my apologies, but this goes out 4 times a year and always includes a donor story, testimonials that I mentioned before, and then some information maybe about some other vehicles that they can think about, like an IRA rollover or making Best Friends a beneficiary in one of their other accounts. We do have the benefit of incredible photographers and incredible models in these animals. So the hanging cat, where there's a will, there's a way. This is a separate insert, and it just talks about how you can do that and a number to call and a website. Willpower, the dog with a bone on its head. We send out a brochure, a large brochure called Creating Your Legacy of Kindness. So this is a way that people can receive that. Again, willpower, the kitten in the tube, just talking about how helpful it is and how important. So let us know if you've done it or would like some more information. Add a little warm and fuzzy, and this is just inviting people to make a gift through their will or trust. And even pets need nest eggs. So cute. And then what's called reveal campaigns are very helpful because in the plan giving field, only about 15% of people let you know that you are in their will or trust. So 85% of people don't let you know unless sometimes you can invite them to reveal it. So that's why it's called a reveal campaign. Are You My Secret Admirer is a big campaign we do, usually around Valentine's Day. And we want you to let us know so we can thank you while you're able to hear us say thank you, which is how I usually phrase it on the phone. So a couple different creative ideas for the Secret Admirer campaign. And then other reveal campaigns, Are You My Hero in Disguise? I was actually at the Lifesaving Center when the photographer was setting up these little t-shirts and Clark Kent glasses, and it was really entertaining to watch her try to capture these shots. It was great. So another way to reveal an Are You My Lifesaver, showing a lifesaver from a boat. This one is from the Animal Welfare League of Arlington, Virginia. Pets Need a Rainy Day Fund too. And so it's just inviting people to name that organization as a beneficiary of their IRA or their 401k specifically. And then speaking of IRAs, sit, stay, roll over your IRA with a dog rolling over and with a little bit of language about that opportunity. And then obviously a request, a vehicle to request the brochure. So in order to get started, you just need to plan and commit and decide that you're going to include plan giving in your fundraising efforts. And as I said earlier, you can add it a lot of times to what you're already doing. Can you add a checkbox to a reply device or something like that, or a page with a link on your website that's already exists? So create, hopefully you'll have creative ideas or steal someone else's. As I said, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. Share, make sure all of your constituencies, all of your donors, your volunteers, your staff, make it easy for them to share that this is happening, and then repeat that. And part of creating your plan giving plan is creating metrics. So as I said, you don't want to have necessarily short-term time goals. We'll have this many plan giving donors by next month at this time, but some things to measure are very helpful, as well as documents to put in place so that when you get an awkward question about, well, I have this timeshare in Boca, it's great. All you have to do is take over the yearly fees. Well, timeshares are notoriously difficult to manage. So as an example, Best Friends does not accept them. So that is it for my presentation. I look forward to receiving questions and doing my best to help you set up a plan giving program. Thanks a lot.